A team working on an unofficial Dark Souls sequel has proven that we shouldn't doubt just how talented fans can sometimes be. Dark Souls Nightfall aims to provide an entirely new experience to the classic FromSoft game, and now it's taking cues from Elden Ring and is getting closer to release. In today's video, we'll look closely at it and a lot more. So let's dive in. First off, the modders behind the anticipated fan project have shared a development update. The modders behind Nightfall, the unofficial Dark Souls sequel, have recently shared an exciting new update on the game's development. The progress update was uploaded on YouTube, and the mod's creator even stated that they're making great progress on it and are getting closer to release with each passing week. The project faced some delays earlier this year, but the team is now back on track and moving forward with development. Addressing the delays, Scott stated that the reason behind the delay was a very boring one. They didn't have much time to work on the game this year. He mentioned that Elden Ring also took up a lot of their time, and we can understand them wanting to hold development for a bit to play FromSoft's hyped new open-world RPG. This is because not only was the game a distraction, but it also served as an amazing inspiration for the mod. The devs stated that they found themselves enjoying the many different aspects of the game, and they now hope to take cues from it. They hope the new changes will help smooth out Nightfall's rough edges, bringing it more in line with the higher standards that players have come to expect from Elden Ring. Next, what else can we expect to see from the mod? A delay is never great, especially for a project as cool as this, but as long as the developers are making use of it in a proper manner, we suppose we can bear the weight. The team is taking the extra time to flesh out some of the smaller scope boss fights in the game. The mod will feature new major bosses and remixed versions of the fights we already remember from Dark Souls, but the difference between the two felt a bit too drastic, and they're hoping to fix this by launch. Elden Ring does a great job of blending its main story bosses with the more common encounters in the world and inside caves and dungeons. While the main bosses are a bit more iconic and difficult, some of the game's most exciting encounters are locked inside optional areas that most players might not even go to, and so that's a quality that could be brought to Project Nightfall. While it's not going to be an open-world experience like Elden Ring, having a better blend between the new bosses and remixed ones could help to make it feel like a much more cohesive sequel. The bosses in the Souls games are the highlights of the whole thing experience, so it's great to see that the team behind this mod is taking special care to ensure they're perfect. Plus, if it's done right, this could be the most ambitious Dark Souls fan project ever. Fans are endlessly excited about Project Nightfall, and for a good reason. If done correctly, this could be the most ambitious Dark Souls fan project we've ever gotten. Not just that, we think it has the potential to go down in the history books as far as amazing mods are concerned. The main person behind it, Scott Grimrukh Mooney, has been working with a team of modders since last year. The project will have implications for the game's narrative while modernizing the gameplay of the original Dark Souls to bring it more in line with modern standards. Scott described it as heavily modified, focusing on faster-paced action. And of course, to make up for this shift, the enemies will also have faster attack animations that have been modified. Plus, there are new NPCs and quests, complete with voice acting. There are new areas and a fresh world map for players to explore with assets from the main game that have been rearranged to offer a fresher experience, even to longtime fans of Dark Souls 1. It's safe to say that if handled properly, all these aspects could make Project Nightfall one of the best fan projects to come out recently, and something truly worthy of being called a Dark Souls sequel, even if it's an unofficial one. Moving on, let's discuss how Dark Souls PTDE has gotten the short end of the stick. Due to some technical issues, FromSoft took down the online services for all Dark Souls games on PC right before the release of Elden Ring. Apparently, a dangerous exploit was being used in the game's online versions, and FromSoftware didn't want it to compromise the release of Elden Ring. Later, all the Dark Souls games were brought back online, but FromSoftware announced that Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition wouldn't be among the ones returning. Dark Souls PTDE was the first version of Dark Souls released on PC. It came bundled with the DLC, and despite being old and having some technical issues, it still had a community of passionate gamers that played it to this day. Plus, it had a modding community dedicated to bringing new additions to the game. They helped to keep it alive, even years after the game's launch. Because of all this, it's sad that FromSoft has not shared the same level of care for his community section. FromSoft stated their reason was that the game's architecture was too old, and because of this, they can't continue to support it. For what it's worth, if this is the reason, it does make sense, even if it isn't easy to accept. Plus, here's how the release of Dark Souls Remastered destroyed the PTDE. Years after the Dark Souls PTDE was released, FromSoft launched Dark Souls Remastered. This was marketed as the ideal and definitive version of the classic game, bringing multiple new quality of light changes and graphical enhancements. The changes weren't as great as many people thought they'd be, especially regarding the graphics. Many players felt like the the remastered version took away some of the dark and gritty appeals of the original game, making it seem oddly shiny in many places. As a result, fans continued to play the PTDE version of the game despite a newer remaster is available. FromSoft didn't seem too happy with this though. They didn't want players to continue to play the Prepare to Die edition, and it became unavailable to purchase ever since Dark Souls Remastered came out. Considering the remastered edition wasn't even free for owners of PTDE, only meant that many of the people who bought the original had little to no reason to make the purchase. It did come with a discount, but considering the list of changes was very limited and some were actively detrimental to one's enjoyment, many weren't too keen on buying the remaster. It seems unfair that these players won't be able to play their characters online, which they've likely spent hundreds of hours on. Finally, Dark Souls PTDE going offline will probably end the community support it received over the years. Dark Souls PTDE had one of the most dedicated fans. At the same time, there weren't many of them. The ones that played it, even after all these years, tried their best to make the game exciting and fresh, with frequent mods and additions. But with the game going offline permanently, it's tough to imagine that the community support it had received for so long will continue to exist. While Souls games can be played offline, the online functionality adds such a fun dynamic to it, and the world almost feels empty to play it without the other players being there. Other players can leave behind short messages, often filled with useful hints, trolling comments, and inside jokes. These help to add a lot of charm and life to an otherwise dark and bleak world. And now that the game isn't online anymore, it's tough to imagine what it'll be like to travel through Lordran without these messages. Plus, there are loads of in-game mechanics like covenants and invasions, which rely on multiplayer support. With the game going offline, players won't be able to properly play everything that the game has to offer. Considering that many covenants and invasions have lore implications, the story is yet another part of the game that has been adversely affected due to PTDE being taken offline. Even small things like hearing the bell tolls of other players as they progress through the game added so much to the game and will be severely missed by anyone that plays PTDE now. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Project Nightfall has what it takes to cement its place as Dark Souls' unofficial sequel? Comment below, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.